Hi, I'm Greg Schaefer, and welcome to the Virtual CISO Moment. Wil Klusovsky. Why did I do that? It's like I'm great with your name, and I was getting to be so excited to talk with you. He joins us on the podcast today. He is the business advisor to cyber and tech firms and the host of the internationally known Keyboard Samurai Project. And as we do on the Virtual CISO Moment, we never go back and re-edit, even when we make mistakes. Wil, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you. And I'm the same way.
So I can say it.
Yes.
I have no problems with it. I never stumble over it, except for that moment right there. So, but hey, we just keep on going. So, Wil, please tell us a little bit about yourself. How and why you got into cybersecurity. I mean, it's kind of a crazy field to be in, right? And what led you to where you're at today, what you're doing today, and also I'd like to hear what led you to finding starting the podcast.
Sure. Yeah, that says a lot. I love it. I get to talk about myself. So my favorite topic. So I don't. I've been doing this for like 25 years or so now. So I started the Marine Corps, which was funny because I was in college studying computer science, and I was quite bored because I didn't bother testing out of anything like, even though I had done sort of the computer stuff in high school and stuff. So I got kind of bored, and I decided to join the Marine Corps and blow some things up. Not go into technology, and then, ended up in there anyway. About the time,
it seems like that for some of us, we just get dragged into it. I don't know how. I mean, I went in college for mechanical engineering. I mean, how did I get here? So
I was when I got so bored, I went and studied creative writing, and then I realized there are no famous and rich 21-year-old authors. So I joined the Marine Corps to go have some experiences. And at that time, I sort of found security. I was doing. Which it wasn't cybersecurity. We had information security at the time. It was, information assurance, WSUS updates, and making sure people were doing annual training, and some firewalls, and port security, things like that. And I realized this is an industry that's going to have some longevity. And it was pretty much at that moment I decided I'm going to go all in on this industry, and I'm going to become an executive. I'm going to be a CISO. Like, that was my goal. So I finished my degree, got out of the Marine Corps, had a couple of gigs in what we would call the client side. So I worked for some retailers in IT and around the space for a while before I had my first sort of full-time gig in consulting, where I was managing a security team that was doing the kind of stuff that we all do every day, everything from compliance and risk assessments and firewalls and all that good stuff, managed security services. And so from that point on, I spent most of my career in those organizations, from very large ones, very small ones, or not very small ones, but very large ones, to sort of medium-sized organizations. And in that time, I've kind of had every role that exists. I've built and ran pre-sales teams. I've done channel management. I've done service development. I've done R&D, created new practice offerings, done the boring old, go and deliver, be a QSA, that kind of stuff. Been a C-level executive. Somewhere along the line, somebody realized, well, actually really early along the line, I think they realized that Wil likes to talk, and he can explain things to people and they understand it. So I quickly became the person they put on stage, the person they put in the room to talk to the CISO. Because I was very much someone who I was comfortable with. I didn't need to know everything to talk about it, so I can learn. So I learned things really quickly. Like, I learned enough about it to be able to go in and have a conversation. And a lot of times I talk a lot about that critical thinking in a lot of the posting and the content I put together, like the ability to just kind of understand the underlying things of how it works. Like, you don't necessarily need to know the ones and zeros, and that's been my whole mindset. So kind of from there, that all kind of transitioned to me kind of where I am today, where I'm actually the revenue and growth officer for an MSSP, Appalachian Technology now. I also, as you mentioned, host the Keyboard Samurai podcast, which for me was literally just a way to contribute back to the industry and have conversations with people like this and help businesses and other individuals and individuals within our industry kind of learn about how to do things better. So, and I love doing that. And then, that's kind of where I'm at and how I got here. We'll see what happens next.
We share a very similar passion with regards to the podcast. I know before we were recording, I was, talking about like subscribers and numbers and this and that and that. Very early on when I was starting the podcast, I got a little obsessed about looking at metrics. It's like, how come this one didn't have as good views as this one? And it's like I had to ask myself, what's my why? Why am I doing this? It's like, am I doing it for the numbers, or I'm no, I did it back then. Well, in all honesty, when I first started this, it was more of a marketing arm for vCISO services.
Sure.
But then it became something different. It's the only attachment to vCISO is as a sponsor. But it's really because I enjoy talking with folks and I enjoy like sharing the conversations. It got to the realization that, and I think you probably came to this too, where it's like, I have great conversations with peers, and yet other people can learn from that. Why not just record it? And then suddenly it all made sense.
It's funny. I have some people that I meet with regularly, and we kind of brainstorm different ideas and things that we may be thinking of doing, or hey, would this work? And I've started doing them on StreamYard and just recording them because it's like, so in fact, I'm doing one other this afternoon. Me and a marketing buddy of mine are just gonna have some beers and chat about some ideas that we have and some things we might want to do, and we'll record it, and there'll be some snippets that'll come out of there. There'll be hopefully there'll be some profound statements and some ideas that we can turn into something useful and help educate other people as well. So that's kind of what I started doing.
And the beauty of that too is that unlike like back in the day, you spool back 20, 30 years when a storage medium was like expensive, and now it's just like it's inconsequential. I mean, it's ridiculous how much storage we can have. I think with my it was one of my cloud accounts that had mentioned that I think it was my Apple account, that I'm up against my 2 terabyte of storage limit. Do you want to go to top 5 and spend like $10 extra more a month? I'm like, yeah, ding, take my money. It's like, I mean, 5 terabytes. I don't remember if the exact number, but that's a lot of videos that you can see. So yeah, that's actually a good idea. Now I'm assuming though that when you're recording it on StreamYard, you're letting people know that you're recording them.
Oh yeah. We it was actually the guy I meet with. It was actually his idea. He's like, we should record these and see if we get any tidbits out. I was like, that's a great idea. So I'm going to do that. And I had the same experience with Google. Like I have I download memes. I don't care because it's like I hit my number. It's like, hey, $1 more would give you X amount of terabytes. I'm like, that's fine. It's easier for me to pay you $1 a month than for me to go clean out the stuff I know I don't need to delete. So.
Exactly. And when I pass from this world, it's like someone will delete that all, or I don't know. At that point in time, maybe they'll take your digital life and put it in the grave with you. I have no idea. But that's not what we're here to talk about. From your experience, certainly working with all facets of businesses, and also all the conversations that you have with folks in the field today, I know the threat environment for small and mid-sized businesses, it mirrors in some ways the current threat environment for the larger businesses, and in other ways, there's some differences. So I always like asking folks, what in your mind is the most significant threat to small and mid-sized businesses today?
Yeah, so you're right. Like I think for everybody, it's always ransomware anyway, because that's like the easiest thing to happen and huge impact. But for small businesses, I think third-party risk is actually something that is woefully misunderstood and not addressed. Mm-hmm. And usually I'm talking about them as the third party, because those organizations, one, they if they even have an IT or a security team, it's one person, right? If they're smart and they can afford it, they have a managed security provider that's helping them out. But even then, the types of, they get the questionnaire from I think something maybe everybody doesn't realize is every big brand that you can possibly think of that's out there is doing business with a small business.
Right.
I've done vCISO work for companies that are 20 people and less, and they're connected to some of the largest media pharmaceutical organizations in the planet because they do this little thing that they do really, really well, and everybody likes it. And so they need a GDPR policy, and they need a PCI program, and they need to be doing scanning and things like this. And they get the questionnaire of 200 questions from the Archer that's dropped down into a into a spreadsheet. Hopefully not Archer anymore. Somebody's using a better tool at this point, but it's still out there, and they don't know what to do with it. So they answer as best they can, or they bring somebody like me or you in to kind of help them with that. But I don't think they see this as, I have to do this to do business, but they don't always think about like the actual implications of it. They're like, oh, I need to check all the boxes so that they say yes. But the reality is, if you don't actually do the things and don't secure it, and then you become the entry point, because why go after the big organization that has all of the technology and all of the staff and, defense in depth, when I can, it's the target breach. Let me find the HVAC company and sneak in. And that's what all the small businesses are. And if that happens, I mean, I forget what the number is, but the average cost of a breach, IBM data DBR, is like, 9 million in the US.
Right.
Yeah,
they're in big trouble. I mean, because they're
going to go out of business.
They're going to be liable. It's like, you said that you do multi-factor. Well, yeah, we do it on these systems. We didn't know it meant every system. It's like, I encourage folks to answer the questionnaire that in the methodology that benefits them, but not to the point of leaving out critical information.
Yeah.
And go ahead.
No, you're absolutely right. Like this is something I think a lot of new people in the industry also understand too, is like security and risk is all about risk. It's all about, how much for how much, like how, like, yes, we don't do this, but, and that's how I've answered a lot of those questions. I've had one, so we're like, well, you need an ISO or a SOC too. And they're like, well, we're too small to do that. It's going to be cost prohibitive, but we use ISO as our security framework, and our security, our vCISO consultant, whatever, does all of this stuff with us. So it's all about like explaining those compensating controls, like you said, but not leaving out the fact that, like you said, oh yes, we have multi-factor authentication on one server,
It's about it, to your point, and I'm glad you brought that up, because I try to do the same thing too when explaining this. Also, like to new clients that, okay, an auditor or an examiner might say, well, you're not doing X and you need to do X. It's going to cost a lot to do X. So how do we implement it as cheaply as possible? It's like, well, maybe you don't need to do X, because maybe A, B, and C will work fine. Well, what do you mean, Greg? Well, it's because the auditor's saying you need X. They're really saying you need X to mitigate this risk. So let's look at the risk. How are you doing it? It's like, well, they can't really get to that machine because it's behind a firewall. And we'd have the identity access management in place. We've got a SIM for monitoring their network access control. You layer all these things on there. Okay. Well, the chances of them actually getting to this thing to begin with is so slim that, okay, maybe you've mitigated the risk that for whatever reason you can't put MFA on it. Well, they can never see it. So it's like, or even further, it's like, well, the machine's not connected to anything. Why do we need multi-factor authentication? Well, technically you do. You have to have a key to get into the room. You have to have a key card to get into the building. There's your multi-factor right there. Kind of,
Right.
Maybe if you put in biometrics there for an eye scan and all that. But you bring up the third-party vendor risk management. I get the impression sometimes that we as an industry really aren't doing a good enough job of addressing it.
It's become like, it's widely known. Everybody talks about supply chain risk, right? Mm-hmm. And then that's where it falls. Like, that's the thing. I think people realize it's the same thing. Supply chain risk, third-party risk management, it's all the same. When we talk about, the small company doing business with the large media company, that's a direct third party that kind of makes sense. But you forget that, like, on your third-party risk management register, you should have every one of your software vendors on there, everybody you're buying stuff from, everybody who has some kind of access or provides you a tool. Because if you're using SolarWinds or you're using, whatever, one of these other tools that ends up getting breached, then that could potentially impact you. And then that's risk you have to go to. So I think they forget about that part of it, because they get caught up in the real, like they get caught up in the idea of like, hey, this is a contract. This is something I have to work with. And that's another thing. Read your contracts. Yeah. Because, and read the SOC 2 report, not certification, the report.
Yes. It's an attestation, not a certification.
Right. And here's the other thing. It's written by auditors, so it's very legally sounding. It's not something that a layman is necessarily going to understand, because it uses the the wording and the language that's kind of not familiar to, a standard SMB owner, right? So I've seen, I won't name any specific, but there are large organizations who kind of, have conglomerates or oversee other entities, and they kind of say, well, if they have a SOC 2, they're good to go. They're all, so they're passing down that same mentality down to their organization, the smaller organizations. And at the end of the day, like, they're not the one that's it's going to get out of money, or going to get put out of business for it.
And just the idea of like, obviously that's not the end of the story. That's the beginning of the story.
Sure.
But they leave out the fact that you could get a SOC 2 from one of your suppliers, and if you don't pay attention to it, it may not even cover the product that you're using.
Mm-hmm.
I've seen that several times where businesses will just take a SOC 2 and then check the box. It's like, okay, well, there wasn't anything bad, like in the first page. It's like, well, the auditor's opinion. It's like, okay, they don't go any further. And yet also, you can also learn so much about the smaller business or the supply chain the partner there just by reading the SOC 2. Well, this is how things actually work over there. But I want to flip it around now just a little bit to where we're talking about from the small business side, the small medium business side, the mom and pop shops, the 20 to 50s that do business with the higher, larger organizations, or in CMMC world with the government. Mm-hmm. What's something that we can do as an industry to help those folks a little bit more beyond the kind of standard answers that we have? Well, we have MSSPs, we have virtual CISOs, okay, I don't think that's good enough. I think because not every small and mid-sized vendor goes with an MSSP, not every small and mid-sized organization goes with a virtual CISO. And the same thing can be said is that not every small and mid-sized business goes with a like large integrated ERP software. Not every small and mid-sized business needs to have a CFO, or they have some other thing. I don't think we as an industry are looking at it completely about what we can do, or maybe I'm off base. Do you have any thoughts on that?
You have a lot.
I
think the hardest part is, and I always look at stuff from the business side. That's kind of how. Having somebody, being somebody that works with organizations to help their business become more secure most of the time, you always have to take into account what's the business actually able to do, what matters to them. And it's something I teach all the time in like the educational content I do. It's like I don't think there's any company whose job it is to, who spends all of their money, because the way they make their money is by being secure. Right? Everybody has a goal, and it's usually to make a widget or a software, or to help, or a nonprofit that help. Like, they have a bigger goal, and that's where all their money, time, and effort goes to. So from a security perspective, they really just want us to go away. And I get that. Like that's the dichotomy in our industry, is we have a lot of people who, think they're secret squirrels, tier ones, special forces dropping in and saving the day. And like, that's a fraction of our industry, a very, very small fraction. Right. And, but where the rest of us, our job is to be kind of like, known and not seen or heard, right? Security should be boring. You shouldn't even know it's there. It should just work and be out of the way. And so if I put all of that into perspective, it's very hard to convince a small business owner, or even a couple of leaders, like, to care about it. Like, they know, like, oh yes, I have to care about this. So I think, the challenge in our industry is being able to educate them without inundating them with information they can't use, with, making it digestible for them and making it simple. Like, that's the other thing. I look at like what I, sort of how I educate people from a sales and positioning and marketing side of the house when they're talking to people, when you're talking to your clients that are, not the CISO, but they are the business side. It's like, look, you don't care what the technology is. You don't care that this is this vendor, or that one, or that does all of these really cool. Look, man, I just want it to go away. I want to know it's secure and taken care of. So as to somebody consulting with those organizations, that's the conversation we have. It's like, well, okay, what does your business do? where's your biggest risk? Oh, it's actually here. Have you thought about this? ABC, cool. We'll make it simple for you. This is what you need to do. Here's the bare minimum. Here's where your risks still lie. They need somebody to kind of explain it to them, break it down Barney style, not waste their time doing it, and be trusted and valued, right? So I think there's a combination of folks like you and I who are continually talking about this just out in the ether, whether it's on YouTube or LinkedIn or Instagram or wherever. Like there's a lot of channels. Figure out where you want to go to consume your information. And then they have to care a little bit, and then they have to actually engage. We have to make them care.
And I noticed that as you were talking about all that, there really wasn't anything in there as far as the technical skills that we need for that. This is all about understanding and communicating. And it seems like that what you're saying is that the lead in here is that if you ask a business, tell me about your business, you'll get immediately two wins. The first is that you'll actually start to learn about the business. Well, how can you secure stuff if you don't know where the information is? How can you know where the information is if you don't understand the business? Because that's what drives the information flows. But the second to me seems to be that you immediately start building trust, because you have businesses, small, mid-size in particular, who very, very cost conscious. They don't want to spend if they don't have to. And I get the impression sometimes that immediately when you start talking security with those kind of folks, the defenses go up. You're just trying to sell me something. But if you can earn their trust and let them know, it's like, hey, I'm trying to be your partner. I'm trying to understand where you're at, because maybe I can help you. Maybe I can't. Is that fair to say? I mean, you as chief revenue officer in particular, I would imagine that you have. I mean, I'm kind of chief revenue officer for VC, so I'm chief everything.
You see everything.
So it's like, but I found that at the very least, it's like, tell me about your business first, and then they get the idea. It's like, okay, I think I can trust this guy.
Yeah, it's funny. I was just quoted in some article, I can't remember, about using FUD, fear to sell.
Yeah, fear, uncertainty, and doubt.
Yeah, fear, and it is an antiquated method that is just anybody who is. And now here's the thing: it's antiquated for those of us who are experienced. To a salesperson going and talking to somebody who actually has a CISO title or is a security leader, right? Going and talking to them about, ooh, the boogeyman's going to get you. They're like, yeah, there's no trust. It might still work if you take that to an SMB owner. Hey, you could get breached and lose your business, which is terrible. And it's still, like, to your point, though, it doesn't build trust. And it's also not how you build the solutions, right? You have to, like you said, it's not about the technology. I assume, like, if I'm consulting, my job is to learn about their business, help them understand where the risks are, and then they don't have to worry about the technology. Like, we're going to do these things, right? Or you need to go find these things. Here's the recommendation, whatever that is, right? So it is very much about establishing that trust. And I think most security organizations today, those of us who work that are in the consulting and managed security services space, all understand that that's the approach that we need. Salespeople who kind of try to sell other ways, lead with the product first, or probably they're not going to be as successful. And they kind of know that, but we still see it a little bit today. But I think the shift is coming more and more. We keep banging the drum.
Well, I hope so, because I think that's really the key to trying to solve the SMB security problem at an organic level. It's like, we got to build that trust across the spectrum, instead of like trying to sell security as you can buy a magic box and it'll solve everything. There was this one security company out there for SMBs. I don't mind saying it, because I mean, it was their radio commercial. It was for Barracuda. And it's like it's like this conversation between this man and woman and really bad acting. It's like, the woman, the man's like, oh, I'm so worried about our security. I keep on hearing about breaches. And the woman's like, well, we don't have to worry anymore. We just got Barracuda Super Sonic Turbo 2000. And I'm exaggerating, but not really. I mean, that was the focus of the commercial: was you buy this product, you're instantly secure. And so I think that we've done such a disservice, and this is probably about 7 or 8 years ago, but I think we've done such a disservice in our industry to trying to convince people that this is a technology issue when it's really not. It's a business issue that technology, just like anything else, I mean, technology helps us in medicine, but medicine is not a technology problem. It's a biology problem. So yeah, building that trust, it's like, I hope you're right. I love your optimism that there's a shift coming on. Sometimes I get a little bit more cynical and I think, no, it's never going to happen. But it depends upon what I had for dinner the night before, I guess. But it does lead to stress, because we want to do the best we can for our industry, the best folks, and you and I included, definitely you. We're passionate about what we do because we want to make a difference. We talked about it with the podcast, for example.
Mhm.
It's like, I am never going to see any money off this podcast, by the way. And if I do, I'm like, I'd be very surprised.
Thanks for the 2 cents. Literally.
Yeah, literally. But there's the passion, and so we drive ourselves, and we really raise the bar for ourselves. And I think that sometimes that we induce more stress on our lives, and there's also external stress too. Everything information and cybersecurity, everything being an entrepreneur, for example. And between you and me, also producing a podcast on a regular basis, that can be rather stressful. And it's important to deal with the stress in a positive way and not a negative way, in my opinion. What's one of the things you do to help deal with the stress?
Oh man, that's great. I don't know if I've said this a couple of times. I'm a perpetual hobbyist.
Mm-hmm.
I think at one time I inventoried my hobbies at like well over 50 in my life. And when I say hobby, that's not like, oh, I did this for a week. That means like I got proficient at it and like had the equipment, did the thing, and maybe I still do it, maybe I stopped doing it. So there's a lot of things I do. I think right now I do a lot of, it's kind of weird, actually like miniature painting. So with like war games, Warhammer, Star Wars, there's all these like really cool games you can get at hobby stores that have these really detailed miniatures. And I've got like, I don't know, 300-400 different colors worth of paint and stuff. And it's just really relaxing to just kind of sit down and then like, bring this little critter to life. And, sometimes I actually play the game. but most of the time, I think that's probably the thing I'm doing a lot now, is that I'd like to be playing Dungeons and Dragons more or any other RPG. But getting people together is just a pain and hard.
I think you mentioned to me about the miniature painting before in some other conversation we had, and I think my initial reaction was, well, that would stress me out more. Like, I remember building a Eagle transport model when I was a kid from the old show Space 1999. And really upset that I couldn't get the red line straight. And I kept on trying to like add a little bit more to the side, a little bit more to the side. And then pretty soon they were like about twice as wide as they were supposed to be. I'm like, I suck at this stuff.
What's funny though? Here's the thing for me. Like, as an example, I love things that are made of like solid wood. Like I would love to be able to do woodworking, but I don't enjoy, like I've tried, I don't enjoy the process of it, which a good woodworker has to do, because it takes a long time. I just like the outcome of that. With the miniatures, like you can be done in an hour, and the more you do it, like it's really cool to be like, it's one of the few things that you can visibly see, oh wow, I'm better today, and this was yesterday, and this is a week. So there's almost like there's a lot less of I have a problem with, it's not delayed gratification, with kind of, it's really easy for me in business to kind of see the big picture and the whole end goal. But when it comes to me personally, it's like, no, I need to be the best now. I need to be better now. Like it's hard for like going to the gym. Like I know I have to do it. But it's hard for me to conceive that like, oh yeah, in 6 months, you're going to feel healthier and look better and all of that. But with the miniature painting, like it is pretty, you do get faster gratification. So maybe that's why I like it.
So what are future plans in 6 months, for example, or
Okay.
what's coming up for you? That was a nice segue, by the way.
Oh, that's correct. I said that on purpose. So I have focused this year on my speaking engagements. So I worked really hard on all of the B-sides events that I could get to close to me. I have submissions into all of the secure worlds. I've been invited to do some stuff at the Channel Co. That's not announced yet. So for me, that's what I'm kind of building towards over like long term. At the end of the day, like you said, I just want to go out and be able to talk to people and educate them on any vast sort of number of topics. And plus, I'm an egomaniac extrovert. I like being on stage and getting attention. So I'm not afraid to say it. So I'm building everything up towards, that working my brand to be able to kind of be the person that everybody, wants to have at their event and talking to. So that's, I want to be Mr. Popular, I guess.
Well, you're doing an awesome job. If you're not linked up with this with Wil in on LinkedIn, check it out. He's got his link right there in the I don't know what way to point. There it is.
Yeah,
over
there it
is. And also YouTube. So keyboard key BD Samurai, I guess it is, on YouTube. I've seen some of your stuff out there. I've been on your podcast, so it's just like, it's a very good podcast. Very, very much enjoy it. You're doing great stuff, and in all seriousness, really appreciate what you're doing for the community, because when all is said and done, this is how we're going to solve the problem. It doesn't come down to tools. It doesn't come down to anything else, but it comes except for passion.
100% agree. Thanks, Greg. This has been so much fun.
Appreciate you spending the time, man. And everybody, stay secure.